Broads Media.
All right, well, you got enough WrestleMania out of me. Now it's time to get back to reality. Let's talk a little fighting Phillies, as they take Game 1 in St. Louis, thanks to Johan Rojas and Brandon Marsh, who I expect Brandon Marsh to be a dog. Woo, 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 right? Just like Brandon Marsh does. So he's an animal. And how about Spencer Turnbull? 6 innings of scoreless ball. He only walked... Well, I didn't write that down. 2 hits. I think he only had 1 walk batter in the whole day. And yeah, Rob Thompson could have kept him in the ball game. No doubt about it. You got through the top of that order. So around the middle of the lineup, 5 or so, that's when Rob elects to go to the pen. Sir Anthony gives up a run right after that. But, I'm not going to destroy Hoffman or the whatever you want to call it that happened in the 9th when the Phillies had a 2-run lead, then it becomes tied. It's annoying as hell, but I would only criticize pulling Turnbull, although I think I'm kind of convincing myself to go the other way here for a second. Now that I'm preaching it and saying out loud, if you do keep Turnbull in, maybe that maybe that Sir Anthony Dominguez run isn't on the board, and then that changes the rest of it. But in an ideal world, when breaking down what a manager does, if you can get a Jeff Hoffman in the game with a 2-run lead in the 9th, previous decisions doesn't change the fact that that's one of your most powerful, successful arm. Regardless on how you got there, in the 9th inning, you had one of your most reliable arms. I could never get mad at Rob for having Jose Alvarado in the 9th with a lead, with an opportunity to save it, and if it fails, then it's on Rob Thompson for going to Alvarado, unless there's some context here on stupidity with matchup. This guy hits .558 against Jose Alvarado in his career, and then there's somebody who's warming up who has struck him out in the last 4 at-bats, and they go, oh, yeah, let's go with Alvarado, right? Okay, if it's that outrageous, then maybe. But from a more simplistic, realistic conversation piece here, for the most part, if you have a multiple run lead and you're going to Hoffman or Alvarado and it ends up collapsing, you have one of your best relievers in the game. He just failed. He failed. And realistically, Gregory Soto on another night could have allowed a 2-run bomb to tie it up 5-5 when the 10th happened, thanks to Alec Bohm. I want nothing to do with Bryce Harper. Okay. I mean, you've learned now over the last couple of games, if you decide, I'm not playing around with that Bryce fella, bring me on whoever is behind him, bring on whoever is behind that person, I take on that challenge any day of the week. Okay, I get it. But the problem is, we will make you pay. JT Realmuto will make you pay. That's what we saw against the Washington Nationals. And I've said this 5 billion times already, so if you haven't heard me on any other show, super insanely busy weekend for me, so I just didn't have the time. I'm adulting, all right? So I didn't realize that, although I say that yet, and I watched WrestleMania, which is probably one of the most childish things ever, but the greatest thing ever. I just want to say, no knock on it. I say that in a way of like, hey, it brings you back to your childhood. It's nostalgic. I'm saying it in a very positive light, but I just feel like this weekend, I got away from baseball for a tad. I paid attention, just not to the level of pitch by pitch. So realistically, here's my takeaways on that series. 2 of 3 is good. They missed a chance to do great things. Great things is sweeping. They played a bad opponent. They did a good thing. I'm not going to diminish what they did or absolutely crucify it. It was good. If you take 2 or 3 against multiple teams in a row and you put together a great stretch, then I'm not going to be angry with you. You could have done great things, though. For example, the Atlanta Braves, when learning the news that they might potentially not have Spencer Strider at the time, right? You get this message on your phone, ESPN notification comes flying through, your MLB at-bat app goes flying through, the Athletic goes flying through. Hell, I wouldn't have been surprised if NBC Sports Philadelphia even gave you an update on a team like the Braves potentially losing their biggest star. So when they're getting this info, they're playing the Arizona Diamondbacks, and they're sweeping their ass. And that's the difference, right? One team is sweeping the Arizona Diamondbacks when getting brutal, potentially World Series changing move in not having their number one ace. It could be that detrimental to them. There's a reason why they went after Aaron Nola. There's a reason why that they had their eyes on Chris. They had to make a splash, and they had to get something going. Remember what Max Fried did? They're yanking him out of a game in the first inning, and they still find a way to win, which is just absurd, and that's the sort of the talking point on who the Braves are. They find ways in any way possible. But there's a reason why they were targeting starting pitching, potentially a World Series changer injury, and they're still sweeping the Diamondbacks. We strike out double-digit times against the Nationals on a Sunday when there was just really nothing to you. Just blah, boring, ho-hum, let's just see what happens. I want killer attitude. Base running is problematic. I like the Kyle Schwarber singles, and I like his ability to try and take off, although maybe not every time. They got thrown out a lot. And while other teams were picking on Christopher Sanchez and taking bags, you can't have that happen. So you're telling me the other team's getting free passes all game because they got a tip, they got a read on Sanchez, and he's going to have to work on that. Not a very strong day and successful day for him. Threw a lot of pitches, barely got through his outing, so he needs to clean up a lot of things if he wants to be consistent. I guess the Spencer Turnbull out of nowhere from the dead Undertaker coffin. Speaking of Undertaker, wow, Sunday was the most ridiculous thing my eyes have ever seen. Pretty underwhelming Raw after Mania, if I'm being honest, outside of the first promo. But I told myself I wasn't going to do this. I told myself we weren't going to be talking wrestling. I even had on my WrestleMania hoodie that I bought when I was there, and I was like, am I going to go double dip? Am I going to go 2 days in a row just hanging out in that one and record again? Now change the shirt. So I changed it because it's too much. Yet here I am trying to get myself, massage myself off this, but in reality, I am obsessed and they got me hooked. Come on, Triple H. I needed something sexy to happen on Raw after Mania, and you gave me a big whiff. Trey, he helped you out with 3 hits. Dating back to my takeaways and maybe what I would have said after that National Series is, yeah, Rojas and Trea Turner both make me feel uncomfortable, yet they smack everybody in the face here. And Rojas was doing it in many different ways. You get on second base, you really hope that your top of your lineup, your Bryce Harpers, your Schwarbers, those fellas can help out because they know that this kid's desperate. For as electric as today was with Rojas, knocking in a run, making a grab out in center field that only Rojas can do. This is the example of when Dave Dombrowski goes, this guy can change the game. That does. If this is Rojas, I'm thrilled. If this is Rojas, I'm loving it. If this is Rojas, this is the greatest. It's amazing. But he's been 42 for how great this Rojas performance was. He's been that level of bad since game 1 of the season. If there's consistency here and he allows this to take off, then no doubt about it, I'm here for Rojas. And he needed this because I do feel he was on life support. There was pressure and a lot of talk about, all right, look, I get it, you tried it, but isn't it obvious? You don't really need that much more of a sample size right now. You don't want to destroy the confidence where he can't ever find it whatsoever. Let him get some at-bats and let's do the kid right and do this team justice to let Brandon Marsh play because, as you could tell, he's getting good reads on balls, going back to the wall, making an excellent grab at the fence, and then also his ability to show his power right now. He's everywhere. So if you needed to buy time for Rojas to develop, then you have your answer. You have your answer in center field. I saw Mike Sealski of the Enquirer write a column, and jokingly there was some sarcasm, but not really. There was this discussion about Trea Turner. Where has he played in other parts of his career? Outfield, center field. And it was never actually close to being really discussed. I saw Jack Fritz sort of throw some things around as well. But yeah, I mean, there's real concerns about Trea Turner. If Nick Castellanos and Trea Turner, 2 of your biggest splash stars that you brought in here, if they're major flops, then I don't know what to tell you. I mean, you're not a World Series contender. That's just reality. If those 2 guys stink, there's only so much Schwarber and Harper and Wheeler and Nola can do when we're talking about actually winning it all, right? I'm not talking about being a good team, a competitive team, a feisty team, the team that we've seen, but they got to do something. You saw the difference last year. When Castellanos turned it on, the Phillies were winning a lot of games. When Nick Castellanos fell asleep and started to swing at the sliders away, if you watch, I'm just going to throw this in there. If you watched Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes, there was a meme going around where Roman Reigns takes a huge swing at Cody, like a monster swing. You can hear the air with the woof, like when you're swinging a wiffle ball bat, you can hear it whistle in your ears because of the velocity of the torque of your body when you're playing in the backyard, trying to pimp a bomb in front of your buddies before you jump in the pool. Yeah, that's my childhood at 6, 7, 8 years old, trying to put the chair behind you when you're batting, and if it hits the top half of the backrest, then it's a strike. But if it nips the armrest, it caught a part of the plate, you start screaming at your buddy. You throw the yellow wiffle ball bat at his face, and then you start fighting. Then it turns into WrestleMania, and you RKO him in the pool. All right, yes. I told you. WWE has me exactly where they want me. How did we get there? Rojas, Marsh. I have no idea. This team needs Nick Castellanos and Trea Turner to deliver for them to be anything successful. Okay, I think I tied it back to the norm here. Yeah, that needs to happen. I mean, it needs to happen. Speaking of what's going on around the internet, I saw that Rhys Hoskins was on foul territory, and he believes that the Phillies fans would boo him in his return. He can't be serious, right? I don't know, though, if you answer it the other way, how beneficial that is. Oh, of course I'm not going to get booed. Maybe you take the humble approach. Everybody does. And then he tried to spin it to such a team-friendly thing that, well, I mean, I guess technically if they're mad at me, that means the Brewers are doing something good and I'm here to win some baseball games. All right, that's just leader Rhys Hoskins that we all miss and that we all love, just showing his worth out in Milwaukee. But take a listen. Here's Rhys Hoskins on what would happen when he comes to Philly. It's crazy. It's ludicrous.
All right, you saw it for years. You went back. You were at Philly. Guys that played there would come back. You know how they greet guys who used to play in Philly. Are you going to get booed when you go back to Philly?
My guess is yes. My guess is yes. My guess is yes. I'm hoping. I don't know if hope is the right word, but if I'm getting booed, it probably means that the Brewers are doing something to be winning the game or to win the game. So I'll kind of root for that as a way to make sure that we, the Brewers, are coming out on top. But I'm excited to go back. I'm excited to see all those guys, those relationships that I talked about. I'm excited to compete against them. Wearing a different uni. But I said this when I signed. I hope the Brewers win at the end of the day.
Yo, Rhys, come on, man. You really think that we're just going to let it happen? Now, if you, I don't know. I was going to say, if he hit a grand slam in the top of the 9th inning to win, you think that there's a little acknowledgement of it? No, absolutely not. No. Stop it, you idiot. Just stop it. Oh, man. But come on, Rhys. In all seriousness, there's no way that we would treat you like that. We love you. We love you. Sure, I think there was a time prior to the World Series run and the NLCS, even though you unfortunately got injured in spring training prior to, but it was a big deal when your voice was around again, when we saw you in the clubhouse, where we could see you with the team and interact and still have that camaraderie with the fellas. There was a relationship with the fan base with you, too. So, outside of those 2 years that we've had together, and even prior to that, I'm not diminishing what he did, but I'm just saying there might have been a time where him and Aaron Nola were in the crosshairs more of dialogue. Are they good enough? Are they not good enough? So maybe he felt like that was still a part of his talking points here, but I think he sort of outgrew those, if we're being honest. I think he has shown that he is a Philadelphia athlete through and through. Some of the things that him and his wife did for the community, there's just some of those that hit different, and he truly blossomed into that. So I don't know if that hatred or that disappointment or the wondering if Rhys Hoskins can hit a certain mark because of how hot he started off when he first got called up and the epic run he went on to sort of make that splash, then the expectations rose so much. But nobody feels that way anymore. And I get that that's probably not easy, right? You're taking on this city that's extremely passionate from a different team in the same exact National League as you, so you could potentially have this course to run into one another. It's like, am I going to take this on full throttle and go full heel? Oh, did I just make a wrestling reference? I apologize. All right, let me take an anytime hotline call here. I promise there's probably no Cody Rhodes reference. Let's listen to the people, and we'll react.
Hey, Broads. Dylan calling in about the Phillies game tonight. So, listen, man, happy for a win. And, I'm not trying to be negative because a win is a win. And the way it started out, we will take it. We will take it. An ugly one is still a win at the end of the day. But, we have a problem, right? A bullpen problem. Like, it amazes me. We were labeled the best bullpen in baseball or one of the best in baseball at the beginning of the season. And there's just no shot that that's the case right now. I mean, the numbers are horrible, right? 24 of the 41 runs that were given up this year have been from the bullpen. That's over 58%. They have a combined 5.02 ERA, and they've blown 4 saves in 10 games, so pretty much almost half the time. Elite bullpens don't do that. They don't give those numbers up. That is just not sustainable baseball for a winning team. It just doesn't happen. They need to figure something out. I'm not sure what it is. I feel like, you don't just magically forget, or a whole unit doesn't magically forget how to pitch from one season to the next. So I don't know what it is, but they got to dig deep, look within, whatever they need to look within. And
all right, I'm going to stop you right there, and there is still some more left on the call, but I want to react to what your thoughts are on the bullpen. I saw something over the weekend when I was glancing through Twitter a bit about what the team ERA is from the bullpen without Connor Brogdon and with Connor Brogdon, and it was definitely different. I don't know it exactly off the top of my head, but I'm just going to throw that out there into the universe that maybe there's something to that because, well, against the Nationals, it wasn't as if they were getting carved up insanely and their pen was just getting smoked as if they were putting it on the tee. There were limited damage throughout. And whether that's because Aaron Nola did well or Ranger Suarez did well, you still had to ask your guys to go in there for a 3-game set, not to overpower you. And Christopher Sanchez did have a dud, and you needed to maybe eat some more time out of your pen. But ultimately, the full body of work lately, I do think there's a lot of positive strung here. I don't know if I have enough of a sample size with this core to make the claim that they are going to stink forever. As you alluded to, there's no way that as a unit you come back and you just forget how to pitch. So whether they didn't prepare themselves properly in spring training, which I think needs to be questioned because this is now another season of them not knowing how to run bases. And I keep getting asked this, is it on the player, is it on the athlete, or is this on the manager? And if you think about it with the football sense, right? Obviously, there's an offensive lineman that's holding, or there's an offensive lineman that has a false start. Let's talk more about false starts. That's a mental error in football, right? But if your team is constantly having mental errors, you start to say that the coach is not putting his team in great positions and they are not a disciplined bunch, and you start to look at the leader. It is on the player ultimately to be prepared for the right snap count, to not have a false start. It's on the player. But if it happens so much, you start to wonder why and you look above. This is what I'm doing with Rob Thompson. He can't really control Kyle Schwarber. He can't control Bryce Harper. He can't control Nick Castellanos. And for anyone screaming, yeah, you can, you bench them, you take their playing time away. Acuna and Snitker, that's happened with Acuna a bunch. That really hasn't changed him. Jimmy Rollins, just because it happens one time, Charlie Manuel goes, sit your ass down. That's not really the reason why it works is because of the guy and the timing of it, the savviness of Charlie Manuel. But if you use that tactic every single second for every single player for every single moment, I don't think it has the same impact. It runs dry. You really have to pick and choose what dart you're throwing, and you don't have that many darts in the holster, if we're being honest. So you can't just scream to bench them, this and that. It's not how it goes. I blame the manager when it's another year in a row under him, and they're this out of whack, out of sync on the bases. I heard someone also bring up to counter the start on the bases, they're really not that bad. Go look at how the Mets are doing. Go look at how the Marlins are doing. Watch base running around the league. It's not about the Phillies being poor. It's the lack of emphasis around the whole entire squad. But I don't want to say that I'm better than the Mets. I hope I'm better than the Mets. If I'm not better than the Mets, we have a problem. The Miami Marlins didn't win their first game until they had about 8 or 9 losses, if not even more. I don't want to be compared to how the Marlins run bases. That's not where we're setting the marker. Hey, be better than the Marlins. You can't win a damn baseball game to save their lives. You got to perform better. Please, that's a given. If we're even mentioning that team at all in any sort of breath relating it to Phillies baseball, we're fucked. We're fucked. I want to share my 2 cents here on the jerseys. So I'm a little indifferent on the jerseys. I don't think they're bad. I don't think they're great. I would have loved to seen a black jersey with red pinstripes, something ludicrous like that. It would really pop. I love it. I truly think that it would be outrageous. But here's my thing. And I use this example on Coffee with Broads. And hey, if you're interested in joining Coffee with Broads every Monday and Thursday at 11 a.m., it's very simple. You join the community here on Broads Media, $4.99 a month. The information's down below in the description. You get access to a members-only Coffee with Broads twice a week, and also our Discord channel where we communicate. We talk about wrestling. We talk about the Phils, the Flyers, the Sixers, and we have that chat pretty much 24/7. It's been super fun to build that community, so make sure you join if you're interested. Thank you so much. I love the crazy, wild support that you all provide. But if you have to explain a joke, then the joke's probably not that funny. But if you hit the punchlines properly, then maybe it is. With this Phillies one, they explained it. It's blue collar, and they did that whole video that was 2 minutes long or so, giving you the information on what it's about. And when you listen, okay, there's logic behind it. But if you have to explain it that much into detail, it probably missed its mark. It doesn't mean that there's wrong intentions. It doesn't mean that they didn't put a lot of energy and a lot of passion into it and really thought about it and wanted it to be a staple and have a definition. And, they tried that for sure. But I think maybe they went to it to a T so much that it got out of the box, just too much of a tad. But it's a clean look. It doesn't look bad. I just don't know how it represents Phillies baseball. They tried. Maybe they swung and missed. They did a little Nick Castellanos. I hate to break it to you. They probably did a little Nick Castellanos. But I don't think that they're bad. I don't. Anyway, we'll take a listen to the rest of this call, though.
Like I said, don't want to focus too much on the negatives. So I do want to say what a nice surprise Spencer Turnbull has been. I mean, he's just come in and he's done his job and he's done it well. Wow, the dude is he's performing. But the question is then, what are they going to do if he keeps going like this? And, Taijuan Walker has to come back at some point. When we get to those crossroads, I just don't, I don't know what they're going to choose. And I think it's going to be interesting to see, how that kind of plays out.
Did he say crossroads? That's Cody Rhodes' finisher. All right, seriously, this is actually kind of scaring me. So I apologize. If Spencer Turnbull keeps throwing like this and Taijuan Walker returns, then he's got to earn his way in. If Christopher Sanchez is pitching like he did most recently, then Taijuan Walker has a chance to take Christopher Sanchez's opportunity. But if Spencer Turnbull is giving you 6 scoreless, if Spencer Turnbull is putting you in a position to win baseball games now that you won both of his starts, then he earns it. Then he took the ball and is doing better than what Taijuan Walker did for us last year, then he wins the job. It's just that simple. By no means because of the contract is Taijuan Walker handed and gifted the mound. Like maybe he has a little bit of a leash to get going to see if it's going to be a down year or not. And if we see tendencies that it's shaping up to follow last year exactly to a T, then I'm sorry, Dave Dombrowski, you did a bad job with Walker. You did a great job with Turnbull. You did a great job with 99% everything. But guess what? We gave a bad contract away to Taijuan Walker, and we'll have to eat it to some level. If he's not doing his job, I can't hurt this team. I owe it to Bryce. I owe it to Nick. I owe it to Kyle. I owe it to Trey. I owe it to these guys. No, Nick owes it to the pitching, okay? Because that guy's been a disaster. He's just been a disaster. It's unbelievable. I feel so bad about it. I do. Trey, I think, will still have moments. But this Nick thing, and this Trey thing's still ugly, by the way. I don't want to give him a free pass. You're lucky we're talking about this in a sequence where they win 2 of 3, which was good, not great. I kind of want great. I sort of demand great against the Nationals, but it was good. I can't say that they played poor. It was good. They cashed in on intentionally walking Harper. The first game, they honestly left a lot of meat on the bones. They could have demolished when bases loaded in Trea, bases loaded in Stott. They could have blew it wide open. But Aaron Nola was solid. Bada bing, bada boom. You're lucky you won against St. Louis, because if you blew that one, it would have hurt big time. Marsh with the added insurance. We can't kind of let that slip off the radar, because even though they tied it, maybe you would have gotten walked off in the 9th and there would have been so much pain. That would have been devastating. Backstabbing. Here's my final thoughts on the Rojas stuff, though. The kid was incredible and he desperately needed it. Remember, there was a time recently where he grounded out into a double play, or no, he didn't, because he beat it out over at first, and Rob gave him a ton of praise. It kept the inning alive, and then the Phillies sort of had a nice surge there, and I said, I need more. That's like giving me, if I'm looking at a platter, if I wanted asparagus, mashed potatoes, and salmon. He's giving me the asparagus, but I don't have mashed potatoes or salmon, so I'm not satisfied. But when you get multiple hits, you get an RBI, you have a diving grab, and then you end up making a really good play over at first base, beating it out, showing off your wheels. Well, I got the salmon, I got the mashed potatoes. With your base running and your ability to hustle down the first base side, you gave me the other stuff, so now the asparagus, it forms a good meal. Now you're giving me the whole damn platter. I can't just live with asparagus and that be the only sort of food that I'm consuming. No. Does that analogy suck? Potentially. But I hope my point still gets across. Come on, man. He gave you the added. Played a hell of a game. Bought him some time. We'll see how they look tomorrow. All right, everybody. I love you guys to death. Thank you all so much for hanging out, and I will see you on the next one.